What is a pirate's favorite letter? You might think it would be R, but instead it's the D, because today we're giving Norsca the Depth Guard and trying out the Blood Knights of the Sea. Noctilus and the Dreadfleet under the starry skies of Bretonnia, unleashing their Berserker rage against Wulfrik the Wanderer, and an Ice Worm leading a host of barbarian butt faces. The interesting thing about a battle like this one is how different these two factions are, but how similar their melee rushes play, and in a game known for its asymmetry, it may just be the smallest differences that turn the tide. You guys already know it, but Depth Guard were called Trash Guard for a very long time. They were super duper OP in early access back in 2018. CA went overboard with the Sledgehammer before launch, and they never really recovered, but they're seeing a resurgence now in Immortal Empires. Noctilus will do what he can to get the most out of them. Drown Dead, Invocation of Nehek, and Melkos Mystifying Miasma on foot to avoid javelins and allow for a bit more width in this undead army. But the focus is the Depth Guard Corps, who receive 700 more HP, a price reduction of 100 gold, bonus versus infantry, and percentage-based healing, which has made them viable in domination mode especially, and perhaps campaign to a certain extent as well. I believe their healing is essentially double what it was in Warhammer 2, so even though they're still quite squishy, they're a lot less likely to get pulled apart in melee. And they become even better at chopping through fodder with that +5 bonus versus infantry. Always been one of my favorite Vampire Coast units. I do love me some elite foot troops. We'll see how they do with their dual axes. They have a lot of pressure on them to perform here, because if they don't do well, this build's not going to win. They'll be joined by the Bloody Reaver Depth Guard, personal bodyguards of Count Noctilus, who can pop and rage for a 44% ward save and chop through any monster with their AP halberds. Bombers, Gunnery Mob, and Scurvy Dogs make up the rest of the build, and I'm once again playing against Xiphos, and he has a really interesting army composition here. The Frostworm, with its chilling aura and minty fresh breath, is a big danger to Depth Guard, and will be stalking the skies waiting for an opportune moment to strike. Not a unit you typically think of for taking on the Vampire Coast, but I can see the appeal if it can stay away from guns, which are maybe less of a danger against Norsca, simply because of how fast and good at swarming they are. Its front line is a horde of Berserkers and regular Marauder infantry, who will not beat Depth Guard but will deal a lot of damage back, and a back line with an obscene amount of javelins and axe throwers. There's no way he'll be able to defend all of them from Scurvy Dog attacks, but there's so many of them to pincushion the elites that it might not matter. And if you're expecting crabs or Morghuls, this many throwing axemen and javelins would devastate them in a hurry. Shades of the Franks from Age of Empires 2. Brutes of the Hound are here as well, led by Wulfrik the Wanderer and a Shaman Sorcerer of a Lore of Fire, Piercing Bolts of Burning and Firestorm, while Wulfrik brought only the boat. So both armies very spread out right now, pretty much taking up the entire battlefield, and it is going to be a melee-focused rush for both players, but there's some potential for kiting on the Norscan side as well. When you have 4 javelins and 3 throwing axemen, you can definitely do some nasty things in terms of keeping away from all this infantry, as long as you defend your back line from those Scurvy Dogs, and the Frostworm might be pretty good at that. If they dive into your rear, get that Frostbite and Chilling Aura going, severely hamper their mobility, and it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to kill off all your javelins and throwing axemen. So our blood is up now. Both players look like they want to play football and run straight into the thick of it, but expect lots of baiting with the bombers. Generally want to turn them off fire at will so they don't throw at units that are ready to dodge. There's already been some attempts at that. Some good attempts, because they didn't get exploded by anything. Gunnery Mob have opened up from close range. Wulfrik and the Shaman Sorcerer fear nothing in the center. Scurvy Dogs moving around the flank, and expect Xiphos to down those bombers first with the javelin throws, then turn his attention to the Depth Guard. But one of the best ways to get rid of the zombie infantry, explode them with glacial breath attacks from the flank. That was a gorgeous one. Pretty much takes an entire bomber unit off the field. There will be plenty of Marauders blown up on the way in, but as long as your Berserkers aren't the ones taking the brunt of that, you're probably okay with that trade. With that said, Brutes of the Hound are taking nasty bomber volleys from the flank, and Noctilus is in the thick of it now with Wulfrik the Wanderer and the Shaman Sorcerer of the Lore of Fire. The Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob already about to disappear. They didn't really get many volleys off at all, and Norsca looking very strong on their right flank, where 2 Norscan Warhounds are looking to go around and get into those Gunnery Mob and shut down some of the bomber play as well. But the Scurvy Dogs are about to come out, and this is the problem with going this wide with this many ranged troops. It is going to be challenging to keep your Marauder Hunters online. Now, they will defend themselves better than many other infantry units in melee. They do have that Berserker Rage passive, but we'll see if that's enough to keep them alive. Some of the axemen already being torn apart, but the Frostworm is there. Chilling aura, frostbite, slowing them down, while a firestorm and a sea fang, Wulfrik's ship from the ether, coming into play in the center of the battlefield. Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma hitting some of the javelins in the rear. Now, Brutes of the Hound attempted to retreat. Depth Guard are hot on their heels, and they're chopping through all Marauder Hunters that get in their way. This is a really good backline sweeper unit, especially for infantry. So fast, so efficient at killing lightly armored targets. But the Sea Fang will stop some of the zombie aggression in the center, and a Firestorm isn't going to clip too much, but it will provide some nice fireworks for the 4th of July. Javelin Volley, pin cushioning the remnants of those gunnery mob, and they'll disappear quite quickly after that. And now we'll see this aggression from the Scurvy Dogs. So they're going to be able to deal with the Marauder Hunters out on the left flank. Then they can pretty much have their pick of litter in terms of where to move into the rear of this Norscan army. But same idea over on this side where Norsca was looking much stronger and invested more troops. Their Norscan Warhounds are quite healthy, and they can move into the back line. Although there aren't a lot of gunnery mob or bombers left on that side anyway, they could still put a lot of pressure on some of the lightly armored zombies and start clearing it out to leave those Depth Guard isolated and then shoot them to pieces with all their axemen and javelins. What is that? A Piercing Bolts of Burning in the center should get rid of this gunnery mob summon pretty quickly. I believe that was a Drowned Dead from Count Noctilus, who had to run away from Wulfrik and the Shaman Sorcerer. He's down to half HP. He's not going to be able to outduel Wulfrik the Wanderer, even if Wulfrik doesn't invest in his dueling abilities. He simply has way better stats. Noctilus only has 45 melee attack on foot, and so you really want him fighting in large targets if you want him dueling at all. But of course, he can heal himself. Wulfrik cannot. So Depth Guard chopping their way into the rear of this Norscan army. Depth Guard on this side, though, got isolated, overextended. Now Javelins, Berserkers, and the Frostworm proved to be way too much, and there's no such thing as disengaging. They can't even move. They have 14 speed when the Chilling Aura and the Frostbite stack up. There's just no way they're going to be able to escape these Javelin volleys, and that was really well played from Xiphos. It's exactly how you want to handle them. Let them overextend. They're so good at chopping through lightly armored infantry, which is all Norsca has, that if they kill something, they're going to run right through, and then you slow them down. They won't be able to pull away once you get those volleys coming in from multiple angles. Noctilus is in a little bit of danger here, but of course he can always drop summons if he's real scared. Invocation of Nahak to keep his Depth Guard in the fight, and that should be enough to finish off the Brutes of the Hound, which is an important unit to get rid of. I believe those are 1050 gold. Amazing for killing infantry, amazing for buzzsawing their way through pretty much all the foot troops and zombie pirates that are on the Vampire Coast side of the battlefield. So now that they're gone, the Depth Guard are going to get some regen and hunger the next time they engage anything. With the help of the Scurvy Dogs, Norsca should be very wary of getting anywhere near those dudes. But Norscan Warhounds are moving out to the side. Scurvy Dogs will look to retreat and kind of fold back in to the middle to protect Noctilus and some of those high-value troops in the center. Frostworm moving to the flank looks like it wants to position itself for a breath attack, but Depth Guard, especially the Bloody Reavers, have some ways to counteract that, and the most important is Enrage for that 44% ward save for 25 seconds or whatever the hell. So Norsca is still looking very wide. Vampire Coast beginning to get surrounded, and Bounce Bar is in favor of the Berserkers from the north. So everything will fold back into this tree line and try to weather the storm. And of course, set up for some overcast Invocation of Nahak. Sea Fang and yet another Firestorm from the Shaman Sorcerer. Again, showing why Vortexes that aren't stationary can be a little bit difficult to use. You can't control it like you could in Warhammer 2. I know a lot of people forgot or never realized in the first place that you could control the initial direction of the Vortex, but they got rid of that in Warhammer 3, which is a little bit sad, but it does mean there's some risk and reward, and I think that's an important part of Magic that, you know, is kind of lacking at the moment, especially with those stationary Vortexes. It's just all reward. Oh, I see a unit that I don't like, I'm gonna delete it. Can't quite do that with Firestorm. Need a little bit of luck at least, but you can then see why people would prefer stuff like Pit of Shades, which is for sure going to land wherever you plop it down. Drowned Dead coming out to reinforce Noctilus, who's back up to about half HP. Wulfrik the Wanderer is in a dangerous position here because the Bloody Reaver Depth Guard with their armor-piercing halberds are fighting in and around Noctilus and maybe getting a full surround off on Wulfrik himself. Yeah, he's starting to get real low. Depth Guard, Gunnery Mob, a lot of point-blank volleys from those pistols, and that's one thing that's amazing in this scenario. Any unit you don't like on the Norscan side is guaranteed to have low armor, for the most part anyway, especially against the Vampire Coast. So you just summon some pistol mob right in front of their face and get a bunch of point-blank volleys in. Does a ton of damage. But the Frostworm got a great breath attack in on the Bloody Reaver Depth Guard, cleared out some of those summons, and now chopping through the Gunnery Mob in the rear as well. And at the moment, Vampire Coast doesn't really have an answer for it. Bloody Reavers can't catch it and kill it by themselves, especially not when Norscan Warhounds are there to zone them out and provide a bit of support if that Frostworm gets tied down. Charging in, but routing off now, and Wulfrik the Wanderer is one hit from death. Noctilus and the Bloody Reaver managed to chop him down to size, and one more swing from that halberd, and Wulfrik the Wanderer is dead. And now Noctilus, swagging like Mick Jagger. Look at that, dude. The pimp walk is real. He's feeling himself after that one. Frostworm seen off by the Bloody Reaver Depth Guard, and the Vampire Coast will once again try to conglomerate and form maybe not a box, but at least a steel wall, steel ring around Noctilus, except for these Depth Guard who really want to get rid of those javelins and throwing axemen if they can. Problem is they're going to be isolated out on the flank. Frostworm might be able to punish it if he notices it, but for now, just engaging the dual axe Berserkers of the Undead, and should be able to do some decent damage here, ripping through the 90 armor of those Blood Knights of the Sea. And Noctilus and the Bloody Reaver need to make their way over and see that Frostworm off, because they can't afford to be losing their dual axe infantry, not at this point. Balance bar closer to even now, might even be about dead even. Norsca is beginning to run low on their ammunition and their infantry stocks, and I believe there's at least one more drowned dead, maybe two, waiting on the wings. So in an endgame scenario, being able to rely on a pistol summon to get some point-blank shots into the face of a nasty ice dragon or what have you could be pretty important. And more than anything, if there's a bad duel, not just taking a ton of damage, he'll have bodies to surround him and support him no matter what. Keep an eye out on those Depth Guard on the other side. A lot of stuff routing when they get close to the fear-causing Vampire Coast infantry. Frostworm was hit by Melkoth specifying Miasma to slow it down. Gunnery Mob shooting in and making sure that it retreats, doing as much as they can before it's able to escape, but not going to be able to shoot it out of the sky. Depth Guard are certainly going to be overwhelmed out here. They tried to kill some javelins off, weren't able to, and the Norscan Warhounds will punish them, and it's pretty much down to the pistol summon, a handful of zombies, and those Bloody Reaver Depth Guard supporting Count Noctilus. But as long as Noctilus is alive, the Vampire Coast have a chance, because he is not easy to kill, and Wulfrik the Wanderer is no longer a threat. So, Poison Warhounds moving out here. Norsca will, oh, they're getting some nasty shots in on these Marauder Hunters with javelins, blowing their heads off from behind. But Norsca is not really going to be in a rush here. They're going to wait pretty much for that thing to crumble out, and then once the time is right for the pluck and ready to take over the Farmer's Market, that is when they will engage. So it looks like we've got, yeah, maybe 15 seconds left until that summon is ready to disappear. Noctilus and the Bloody Reaver Depth Guard moving into the tree line to shield themselves from that inevitable third and final breath attack from the Frostworm. And you know Xiphos is holding on to one for the late game. He knows there's important elite infantry that will only be killed off by something powerful like a breath attack, and for obvious reasons, the Dragon doesn't want to be charging into a bunch of elite halberds, so he's lining one up now. Depth Guard have to engage these Norscan Warhounds and poison stuff coming in from the flank, and here it comes. But as the breath attack rains down, Enrage is popped for that 40% ward save, and what would have pretty much one-shot the unit and maybe force those elites to crumble out immediately. 40% ward save will keep them alive, and that is huge, because now they have that source of bonus for Slarge and armor piercing to deal with this dragon. And I'm not sure Noctilus would have been able to deal with this dragon in a 1v1 scenario, but now he doesn't have to. Now he has bodyguards, and now the Frostworm is in quite a bit of peril, surrounded by a group of hardened veteran monster hunters. And that is going to be it. That is going to be army losses momentarily. Noctilus and the Bloody Reaver Depth Guard, two of the most elite in the entire Vampire Coast roster, carrying the day. and lighting the torch for a future filled with Depth Guard. Yeah, they're not a bad unit now, man. They're quite a bit of fun to use. They didn't do incredible in this game in terms of value, but they did do exactly what I needed to, and really all the Depth Guard that died were pretty much a result of just me overextending them, killing something, me not roping them back in time. And that's one of the things that's so thematic about Depth Guard in general, is that they'll buzzsaw through stuff, they'll break through, they'll chase after them super quickly, and they'll overextend. You have to rein them in yourself. You have to micro them a lot to ensure you get the most out of them. They did well for me. The ones that did micro well did great. The ones that didn't overextended and got murdered by a player who's really good at punishing that kind of over-aggression. But the Bloody Reavers and a few of them did great for me. The bomber baiting was really fun. Gunnery mob were definitely the right choice. I like my build here in terms of a melee rush. I think it's going to work out pretty okay against Norsca. And on the other side, I think the Frost Worm was a brilliant pick. It was really the MVP on the Norscan side. Wulfrik was able to outduel Noctilus quite a few times, just wasn't able to seal the deal through Invocation of Nahek. And all those javelins and throwing axemen kind of bringing a hybrid kite/melee rush build to the fore for Norsca. And though my Scurvy Dogs did shut down quite a few of them, 4 Scurvy Dogs is not going to be able to chop their way through 7 ranged troops. And you can see that he got a lot of great focus fire in on my Depth Guard and some of my high value targets. So really fun game. GG to Zyphos, and I will see you all in the next one.